Channel viewers, I am DS, your psychologist, and welcome to another episode on Channel NITT. So many of our viewers would know that I am actually a psychology lecturer as well. So ever since I have been doing MBTI episodes, I have been secretly, not really secretly, but secretly. So ever since I have started to produce more MBTI episodes, I have become more mindful of MBTI. I have also collected much data from my students of their MBTI types. So to date, it has been 1 year. I have 146 pieces of MBTI information of my students. So why only 146 students? This is because I teach multiple modules and many of these students are recurring. So when I got ready to do this episode, I looked at my data and I am pretty amazed. This data is quite unexpected. So when I was a psychology student myself, I remember very clearly one of my lecturers mentioned that all of the students who are interested in studying psychology must have some form of a mental disorder or the other. So I was looking at this lecturer and I think, yeah, that's possible because I have OCD when I was younger, although it was undiagnosed. But I know very clearly I have OCD when I was younger. So I was thinking, maybe this is possible, that people who are interested in psychology may have some form of a psychological problem or the other. But when I look at my own data, I also find very curious patterns. So psychological disorders aside, there is something very interesting about the profile of psychology students in general. And we're going to talk about this in this episode. So I started teaching when I was very young. So I have actually taught for 15 years already. But in my entire teaching career, I have never ever encountered another ENTJ. So I have taught many students, but I have never taught an ENTJ student before. I wonder where they are.
I'll never ever find a man like you.
So very long ago, before I even started teaching psychology, I was teaching in ITE. There were no ENTJ students. Is that good news or bad news? So in other words, there is no single ENTJ psychology student that I've ever taught. Don't know what's wrong. So of the 146 students that I've profiled, there are a few rare types. So there is one ISFP, one ISTP, and one ESTP. The other MBTI type that is also rare is the ESFP. I only have 2 ESFP students within this 146. But according to the MBTI prevalence, these MBTI types are not considered to be rare. So what has happened to all the ISFPs, ISTPs, ESFPs, and ESTPs? I think personally, these people may not gravitate towards psychology. So the SFPs may gravitate towards hospitality, fashion, media and communication, while the STPs may gravitate towards business. So these types may not really want to do psychology. That's why I don't have as many of these students as I should have. In fact, if I look at the profile of my students, most of them are the intuitives. It might be very surprising, 80% of my students are intuitives, which means to say they are either NI users or NE users. But in actual MBTI representation, intuitives only form about 40% of the general population. What this means is that intuitives are overrepresented in psychology. There must be something about psychology that have attracted intuitives to take up this course. So maybe in general, intuitives are more interested in psychology. So I know our channel is meant for the intuitives. So generally, how do I get the profile of the students? I ask them to do the online profile, but I also profile them visually and verbally. That means I do ask them questions. Personally, yes. So right on the first day, when I just got to know all these students, I already start profiling them mentally. So during the break, some of the students will just scatter. Some of them will go for a smoke break. Some of them will go for a toilet break. I watch them. I see how diligent they are. I see how they ask questions. So I will take note whether they ask me questions during the break or after class. I am always very amazed by this fact. Smokers, people with tattoo, people who wear slippers are almost always, actually always P-types. So I repeat, those people who go for a break and they go for a smoke, they must be the P-type, without fail, for these 146 students. And those people who have tattoos, those people who wear slippers to class, they are all P-types. So another interesting point is that INTJs are overrepresented in my classes. Every batch I will have INTJs, without fail. And I will also see a lot of INFJs. So these two types are supposed to be the rarest of all MBTI types, but in every class, definitely there must be an INTJ, and there are a lot of INFJs. When I have a class of maybe 20 students, there might be a case where there are 3 INTJs, 2 INFJs. So I personally think that psychology may be a subject that really appeals to NI users. Now, do INTJs do well in psychology? First, you have to understand what the marking scheme is like. So in the school where I teach, the students' marks are based on their assignment submission and based on their exam essays. So in other words, a student, in order for them to do well, have to write good assignments and good essays. INTJs in general do average in this area. They are okay, basically. They can score around 70 to 80. They are usually not the best students.
You are the best. Nobody's better than you.
So by saying the best student, I am saying the one that scores usually the highest. Based on my observation, the MBTI type that usually does very well is the INTP. Wow! So I have taken a lot of batches. The INTP has consistently done reasonably well for psychology. So when the INTP writes, they are usually very thoughtful. They think deep and they write very relevant stuff. When I mark INTJ essays, I think they are okay, except that they sometimes just lack depth. Maybe the INTJ just values efficiency, they just write as short as possible. So as a psychology lecturer, personally I prefer depth and that you put some thought into your essay. So weirdly, I do prefer INTP essays. Well, of course, all MBTI types can have the potential to do very well in psychology. So I have taught ESFJs, ENFJs, and a lot of other MBTI types that are the top scorer for their class. It's just that I don't have enough data to conclude. So I hope that by next year, I may have enough data to come and give a second report.
See you later, boy. See you later.
So which MBTI type tends to do not so well in psychology? It's the ENFP and the INFP. Not all ENFPs and INFPs do badly for psychology, but if we are looking at the bottom, then a lot of the times the ENFP or the INFP will be the bottom of the class. Now, why is this the case? This is because the essays of the ENFP and especially the INFP is no good. So an INFP writes essays in such a way that they start off without an introduction, they just jump straight to the point, then they start talking about something and then they scatter and talk about something else. Everything is not linked, there is no fluency and no coherence. And sometimes they even put in their personal stories. So I always tell my students, you are a psychology student, you don't write like the Amau Ako or the auntie and uncle from the street. So if the question is what is depression, you don't say depression is feeling sad. Who doesn't know lah, correct or not? You are a psychology student, you should write like a psychology student. So those students who tend to do badly for psychology tend to be those who neglect the fact that psychology is actually an academic subject. So sad to say, there are a lot of psychology students who answer psychological essays in such a way that they do not treat psychology as an academic subject, they just write whatever they feel. So personally, I think in order for you to do well in psychology, you need to have TE or TI. So it's best that you are a TE dom or a TI dom. But generally speaking, I have taught ESTJs before. They also do not do too well. Don't know why. I have not met an ENTJ yet, so I cannot conclude whether ENTJs they generally can do well in psychology. So viewers, I hope that this is a very interesting episode for you. You are not going to get similar content anywhere else except in China NITT. If you are a new viewer and you have enjoyed this video, do consider subscribing so that we can bring you more MBTI and psychology. And for our existing viewers and subscribers, thank you so much for supporting us this far. Okay, I'm going to sign off now and I'll see you in my next episode. Goodbye!